Peddling FUD. I started in antivirus long time ago, back in the 70s. And one of the things at the time, because security wasn't really well known at that particular time, a lot of customers would say you're just peddling FUD. And funnily enough, I'm not sure whether or not those same people would say the same about the antivirus issue that we currently face. One thing I put up there is a lack of cybersecurity measures deployed by organisations in the UK potentially risk the financial stability of the country. Anybody agree with that? Would you think that's just peddling FUD? Yeah? It came up this morning. Peter also did half my presentation for me, Peter Joplin, about similar kinds of things, and he seemed to have a similar kind of view. So then we go, round about the sort of 70s, mainframe computer, right on the top right-hand side there, or left-hand as far as you're concerned. That's where I started. Didn't really have any security issues. The only problem, really, as far as security was concerned, is if you upset the systems administrator. And then he could cause you all sorts of problems. If we move along to the 80s, we started to get into single PCs then, and it was then still not really a security issue. It wasn't until we got into the 90s that the viruses started coming along. And that's when I started with Dr. Solomon's. And we got the macro viruses, and a lot of the time those viruses were just annoying. They didn't really cause us any problem. They dropped characters off the screen, and some of them were quite funny. But that was really where things started to go wrong, because then you get into the 2000s, the noughties. And they were noughties not for just the fact that they ended up in a couple of noughts, but because then you started to get all sorts of security issues coming along. Because things became more complex. There was networking and all sorts of things that were coming along, and the bad guys decided, there's a bit of an opportunity for us here. And now, wow, there's all sorts of stuff going on. And the big one that I want to talk to you about is the advanced persistent threats. With the cloud and with the networking, with complexity as it is, there's a huge opportunity for people to do bad things. So complexity is the friend of the attacker. It's not our friend. And as things get more complex, then so the attacker has a greater ability to attack us. And the other key thing that I've noticed in all those years is that threats track technology. Quite difficult to say that, Winforce, Steve. Not really true. Okay, so is this a US missile carriers, or are they Chinese missile carriers, or what kind of missile carriers are they? And is this an iPad, or is it not an iPad? And did it come just because somebody copied an iPad that they'd seen, or maybe they downloaded something? The next lot of slides I'll whip through really quickly. These are slides of data that we've exfiltrated from our clients. They've been redacted. That we've exfiltrated from our clients during the last 8 years or so that we've been running these simulated APT attacks. So this is some performance data, some CAD drawings that we whipped out of somebody's particular network, a formulae. I think that was for a financial services company. And CCTV information is actually really quite useful now for an attacker, especially if they want to do some sort of physical attack. Trading information. Donald Rumsfeld, I'm sure you're all aware of his little poem, but in this particular respect, it's so apt. One of the big issues that we've got at the moment is we just don't know what we don't know. Somebody also mentioned that this morning. But it is a real big issue for us, because what we see that's reported is just the tip of the iceberg. It has to be. And so if it is the tip of the iceberg, how bad is it? Are we hemorrhaging data? And what's that doing to our economy? I'm not sure I'm going to be able to solve all of those, but I can give you some background to it. So what is all this APT stuff anyway? Well, as far as we're concerned, the first thing is they're not really advanced. This isn't real rocket science. It's a matter of doing some reconnaissance, getting some information on employees, getting the email addresses, putting some phishing emails together, sending them to the company, dropping a rat on the network, doing some lateral movement around the network, collecting some data, and exfiltrating it out of the network. It's not that difficult. And it's really the attack of choice for most organizations. So it's predicated on social engineering, definitely targeted. If you want to target somebody, this is the way to go about it. And it's very complex to defend these types of things. So from an adversary standpoint, here's what we would say that the adversary has as its attributes. And from your standpoint, you pretty much need to mirror those. I mean, most organizations, I think you probably say, we don't have that capability, unfortunately. We'd love to be able to have all of what the adversary has got, but we don't. And so what we are trying to do within Encode is to provide a proactive simulated attack that enables you to understand what the issues are before you actually get a real attack. So here's in simplistic, very simplistically. So we do some reconnaissance. We go to the internet. We look at our clients' employees. We gather all of the information on those employees. We see what social information we've got about those particular targets. We put together our phishing emails. I won't give you some of the details because there's a slide a bit further on. But as soon as somebody clicks on them, we drop our remote access technology onto the network. And once we've got that onto the network, we start to copy it in various places. We set up command and control centers so that we can manage our RAT. Then we start to escalate the attack. We do this within a 2-week period, and the ultimate goal is to get domain administration, which in about 70% of the time we do. But if we don't, we've usually got so much data that domain administration is just an academic exercise. It would come in time. And so we produce a report for the client, which is usually about 80, 90 pages long, which is, here's how we did it, here's all the data we got out, and here's the kind of things that you need to do in order to make sure that in real life that doesn't happen to you. So in order to get over some of the FUD ideas, let's look at some of the statistics. So anybody want to chip in with some ideas on the question? Anybody got any thoughts? Around about 90% of the attacks use some kind of phishing social engineering. So it really is the mode of choice for most of the attackers. How about that? Any idea how long it takes before, these aren't our statistics. It's around about a year, which is, we do it in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks we can pretty much clean out the client's data. And so in a year, you could have a whole lot of stuff out of the network within that time. Any thoughts on foothold? Is everybody? One? Sort of close. 5. We send out 6 at a time, and usually within those 6 emails that we send out, somebody will click on one of them and we'll have our remote access technology on the network. Any idea? Typically detects a security breach. And it's not the company. It's usually a third party. Somebody else usually detects it that there's the breach happened. And this one is a little bit of tongue-in-cheek. We only need one person to click on the attachment of our phishing email. Just one person in your organization happens to slip up. And quite honestly, when I look at the emails when they're going out, I mean, I'd click on them. If it was sent to me, I'd click on it. It looks just like it was a proper email. How are we doing, John? You just put that up there because I said how we're doing.
We're doing well.
Outrageous. I reckon so. So, now Baldrick his cunning plan was never very cunning. So you know this one isn't going to be either. There is no real solution to this that I can give you. I wish I could, because when I sit in front of the clients and I give them the report and we go through it and they think, okay, so what would we need to do in order to make sure this doesn't happen to us? I don't really have a great solution for them. But I can give you some words of wisdom which might help. The complexity issue, it is very complex, and therefore you need to have some way of being able to bring some of that complexity down to a way in which you'd be able to understand what is really going on there. Because when we're active in the client's network, we're just business as usual. We're just going through the network as any other traffic. And so to try and see what we're doing, you really have to sift through quite a lot of information, and you have to look for very specific things, and it's quite difficult. And you need agility. You need to be agile, because you've got to be adaptive, because we're going to move around all the time. We don't just sort of hang about. We're moving from one place to another on the network, and we've got rats dotted all over the place. And so agility and early warning is important, because if you get an early warning, you can start to take some steps. And the human factor, you've got to outsmart the guy on the other end. And this isn't a computer program. This is somebody. This is a human being. Okay, so 2 more slides. I may come in on time. You're going to be surprised. Okay, so from our particular, you need to put some services in place, and I won't read them all out. Otherwise, if I do go through all of these, I'll get the red sheet of paper with this thing here. But you need to start thinking about putting something together very similar to this, and you need controls in data security, application security. You can read them all. So you need to make sure that this isn't just a very simple exercise. It's a very detailed strategy that you put in place specifically to look for these types of activities that are going on in your network, which could constitute an advanced persistent threat. And so you're going to need something in the way of a secure operations center or somebody to monitor your network. And I just would warn you that a lot of the clients, a large proportion of them that we run our simulated attacks on, have a managed security service provider monitoring their network 24/7, but they still do not see anything that's going on. And so it's not as simple as just going out and get a managed security service provider, quite difficult to say that as well, to provide that sort of information to you. Oh, look, there he goes. This is the last slide. It's the last one. Okay, so the plan. Damn. Understand your internet footprint, inform your employees. You can inform the hell out of them. At some point, somebody is going to press that little button and boom. But if you can give them as much information, it's got to help. You've got to do something, after all. Implement an APT architecture. I know that sounds simple, it's just a few words, but in real life, it is a big job. But it absolutely needs a proper architecture. Consolidate sensor information. A lot of people have sensors, don't necessarily consolidate the information. And train the security staff to interpret the sensor information. A lot of the sensors pop up lots of information, but you need to be able to determine what it is that those sensors are actually telling you about an APT attack. That's difficult. Build, it's the last slide, isn't it? I'm nearly there. Build an IR system. So you need some sort of incident response and develop digital forensic capability, because when you see something going on, you need to delve into it and find out exactly what it is that's going on. Sorry, but there is no silver bullet. There's no one product that you can get to protect you. It's a matter of going through it in a very detailed way, building a strategy and putting that into place. It's expensive and it takes a while.